Hey everyone, and welcome back. This deep dive is going to be particularly relevant for our UPSC aspirants out there who are, gearing up for the mains and prelims.
Absolutely.
We're going to be talking about someone who you might not immediately think is related,
Hmm.
but we're going to kind of unpack the legacy of Aga Khan III,
Right.
a global figure whose life and work really intersect with a lot of the themes that you might encounter in international relations or history and in governance.
Yeah, definitely. And his passing, I think, presents this unique opportunity to kind of go deeper than just a typical obituary, and understand how his leadership shaped not just a community, but also kind of influenced development and cultural preservation efforts. And this is particularly in India. And all of this is going to be drawing from a recent piece in the Indian Express.
So let's start with the basics.
Sure.
He was the Aga Khan III,
Yeah.
but what does that even mean?
Right.
It's not every day that we encounter a hereditary
All
imam
right.
leading a global community.
Absolutely. And I think understanding this title is key.
Okay.
So Aga Khan IV was the Imam of the Nizari Ismaili Shia Muslims.
Okay.
Now, to recap very quickly for our listeners, the Shia-Sunni split in Islam goes back centuries,
Right.
with Shias emphasizing the importance of leadership staying within the Prophet Muhammad's family line.
And this is where the Nizari Ismailis come in with their connection to the Aga Khans,
Exactly.
who are considered direct descendants of the Prophet.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite a lineage.
Definitely. It's a weighty lineage.
Yeah, to inherit.
Yeah. And it's not just a spiritual lineage either.
Okay.
The title Aga Khan itself was bestowed upon the 46th Imam
Oh, wow.
by the Iranian monarchy back in the 19th century.
Interesting.
So you have this fascinating blend of spiritual authority
Yeah.
intertwined with historical and political connections.
So we're not just talking about a religious figurehead here,
Right.
but someone who's also potentially operating on a geopolitical stage. Especially when you consider that the Nizari Ismailis are spread across the globe, forming these diverse communities, often as minorities in their respective nations.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Aga Khan V's story takes an interesting turn.
Okay.
He wasn't initially in line for the imamate.
Right.
His grandfather, Aga Khan III, chose him over his father and uncle,
Right.
essentially preparing him for a leadership role in what he called the atomic age.
Mm-hmm.
That's a bold move.
It is.
What made Aga Khan III decide to skip a generation?
Yeah.
It seems like choosing a 20-year-old to lead a global community would come with its own set of challenges.
Yeah, it certainly does. But Aga Khan III saw something in his grandson,
Okay.
a vision for a modern leader who could guide the community through this rapidly changing landscape of the 20th century.
Right.
Think about it like decolonization, the Cold War,
Right.
the rise of new technologies. These are all these forces shaping the world.
So it's almost as if he was groomed to lead in this era of immense global change. Did this unique upbringing influence how he approached leadership in the face of crises like the end of the Cold War or conflicts in the Middle East?
Without a doubt, Aga Khan IV believed in an active and engaged imat,
Okay.
not just confined to spiritual matters.
Right.
He often spoke about the imam's duty to protect the community and enhance their quality of life, a perspective that directly influenced his actions.
This is interesting because a lot of times we see religious figures kind of confine the spiritual domain.
Right.
But he seems to have taken this more hands-on approach
Mm-hmm.
to improving the lives of his followers.
Precisely. And that's where his legacy truly shines.
Okay.
His work with the Aga Khan Development Network, or AKDN.
Yes.
But before we get into that,
Right.
I think it's important to understand...
How his leadership style differed from what we traditionally see.
Okay.
What were some of the key principles that guided Aga Khan IV's actions?
That's a great question. One key principle was his emphasis on pluralism and bridge building between different cultures and faiths.
Right.
He believed that diversity is a strength, not a weakness,
Right.
and that dialogue is crucial for building understanding and harmony.
This resonates with India's own ethos of unity and diversity.
Yes.
Did this principle find expression in the Aga Khan Development Network, or AKDN, which you mentioned earlier?
Absolutely. The AKDN, a network of agencies working across over 30 countries, embodies his commitment to improving the quality of life for people of all faiths and backgrounds,
Wow.
particularly in Asia and Africa.
Okay.
And it's really a testament to his belief in action over words.
So it's not just about preaching tolerance, but actively working towards creating a more equitable world.
Exactly.
From what I understand, AKDN's scope is vast.
Yeah.
What are some of its key focus areas?
They work on a range of issues that are crucial for human development.
Yeah.
Education, healthcare, economic opportunity, rural development.
Mm.
And, their annual budget is over $1 billion.
Wow.
Reflecting a serious commitment to making a tangible difference.
And for our UPSC aspirants, this multi-sectoral approach is a great example of how development initiatives can address the interconnected nature of poverty and inequality.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that while guided by Islamic ethics, AKDN's work isn't limited to Muslim communities.
Right.
They operate on this principle that improving the lives of the most vulnerable, regardless of faith, uplifts entire societies.
Okay.
This inclusivity is a hallmark of Aga Khan V's leadership.
And this resonates with the concept of sarvodaya, the upliftment of all,
Yes.
which is a core principle in Indian philosophy and governance.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to see how his approach aligns with such universal values.
Definitely.
Now, besides development, I've also heard about Aga Khan V's efforts in preserving cultural heritage,
Right.
particularly through the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, or AKTC.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. The AKTC is another facet of his legacy, focusing on the restoration and revitalization of cultural heritage sites, mainly in the Muslim world. And what's particularly relevant for our Indian audience is their work right here in India.
Right. I remember reading about their remarkable work restoring Humayun's tomb in Delhi,
Yes.
a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
It's a huge undertaking.
It's a significant achievement and a great example of how his vision extended beyond just his own community.
Yes, and they haven't stopped there.
Yeah.
The AKTC has been instrumental in revitalizing the Sunder Nursery in Delhi,
Right.
turning it into this stunning cultural and ecological space.
Okay.
And their current project involves restoring the Kwali Qutbi Shahi tombs in Hyderabad,
Wow.
aiming to create a heritage park that will boost tourism and cultural awareness.
This is where the dots really connect for
Yeah.
our UPSC aspirants. We're
Right.
talking about global figures,
Right.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
but their work often has direct implications for India's cultural landscape,
Yes.
heritage conservation efforts,
Mm-hmm.
and even its tourism potential.
Precisely. Understanding Aga Khan IV's legacy provides valuable insights for several UPSC papers. For instance, in GS, you can analyze the role of religious figures in society,
Right.
the impact of globalization on cultural heritage,
Mm.
and the idea of pluralism in action.
And in GS2, his work with AKDN exemplifies international cooperation, soft power diplomacy,
Yes.
and how a diaspora community can contribute to their homeland's development.
Right.
Plus, there are clear linkages to GS the third,
Mm-hmm.
where his approach to development offers a case study for sustainable models,
Exactly.
cultural tourism, and heritage conservation.
Exactly. His legacy provides a multidimensional lens for understanding complex issues
Right.
that are directly relevant to the UPSC syllabus.
And I think what's also striking is his emphasis on bridging tradition and modernity.
Yeah.
He inherited a centuries-old title,
Mm-hmm.
but led his community through some of the most transformative periods in recent history.
Right.
What can UPSC aspirants, who are themselves on the cusp of shaping India's future,
Yeah.
learn from his approach?
That's a fantastic question, and it leads us to the heart of why his legacy matters.
Sure.
Not just for UPSC aspirants, but for anyone navigating a world in constant flux. But I think that's a great place to pause and reflect.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground, and our listeners could use a moment to process all these connections.
Right.
Let's take a short break and come back to delve into the broader implications of Aga Khan V's life and work.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were discussing how Aga Khan V's leadership style offers valuable insights for UPSC aspirants, especially those aiming to shape India's future.
Yeah, his ability to adapt centuries-old traditions to the demands of a rapidly changing world, I think that's a key takeaway.
Right.
It highlights the importance of balancing cultural heritage with progressive development, something that's incredibly relevant for India today.
Yeah. It's like he embodies the idea of walking the talk, you know?
Yes.
He doesn't just preach about progress, he actively drives it through institutions like the AKDN and AKTC,
Yeah.
leaving a tangible impact on millions of lives.
Exactly. And this brings us to another crucial aspect of his legacy, his emphasis on long-term vision.
Okay.
Whether it's investing in education, healthcare, or cultural preservation, his approach wasn't about quick fixes, but about building sustainable solutions that empower communities for generations to come.
And this resonates strongly with the concept of sustainable development, a topic that features prominently in the UPSC syllabus.
Mm.
His work provides a real-world example of how to translate these principles into action.
Absolutely. For UPSC aspirants, analyzing Aga Khan V's approach offers valuable insights into policy formulation, implementation, and the importance of long-term strategic thinking when addressing complex challenges.
It's like he's providing this masterclass in leadership development and cultural diplomacy all rolled into one.
Yeah.
And what's inspiring is that his story shows that individuals, even those born into positions of privilege, can leverage their influence to create a positive ripple effect across the world.
It's a powerful reminder that leadership isn't just about holding a title, but about taking responsibility, embracing change, and working tirelessly to uplift others. His legacy encourages us to think beyond ourselves and consider how our actions can contribute to a better future for all.
Well said. This deep dive has been a fantastic journey exploring not just a life well lived, but also unpacking valuable lessons for our listeners, especially those gearing up for the UPSC exams.
And remember, for those who want to delve further, our primary source for this deep dive was the Indian Express.
Right.
Their coverage offers a nuanced perspective on Aga Khan V's life and the impact he had on India and the world.
So there you have it, folks, a deep dive into the legacy of Aga Khan V, a leader who straddled tradition and modernity, faith and development, leaving behind a blueprint for impactful leadership in a globalized world.
Absolutely.
If you found this episode insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below with your thoughts or any further questions you might have. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and stay curious.